When we start talking about workplace harassment, most companies, they immediately jump to the paperwork, policies, procedures, online training modules. And look, all that stuff is important for sure, but the real issue, the thing that actually decides if a workplace is safe or not, it goes so much deeper than that. It's not really about compliance, it's all about culture.
I'm sure you've heard this phrase a million times. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. But what does it really mean when we're talking about preventing something as serious as sexual harassment? Well, it means you can have the thickest, most comprehensive policy binder in the world, but if your culture is broken, none of it matters. Your strategy is just a piece of paper. Your culture, well, that's the engine that's actually driving the car.
So, let's just break this down. On one side, you've got compliance. That's the official stuff, right? The policies, the procedures, the training records. But on the other side, you've got culture. And Culture is what happens when the boss isn't in the room. It's about what behavior is really tolerated, whose voice actually gets heard, and all those unwritten rules that tell people how to act. One is what you say you do, the other is what actually happens. And here's the brutally honest truth that we all have to get our heads around. Your culture isn't that nice values poster you've got on the wall. It's not the code of conduct buried on the company intranet. No. Your culture is defined, plain and simple, by the worst behavior you're willing to let slide.
Just think about this for a second. Let's say you have a top salesperson, a real star performer, and they keep making inappropriate comments. But everyone just kind of looks the other way because, they bring in so much money.
Right there, that action or inaction, that's your culture. It sends a blaring signal to everyone about what your company truly values, and it's definitely not respect.
Or how about this one? Someone is finally brave enough to report harassment, but then, all of a sudden, they stop getting invited to key meetings. Their own teammates start giving them the cold shoulder. They're basically sidelined professionally. Yep, that's your culture. And what it does is it teaches every single other person one thing: stay quiet. So you see, these little everyday tolerances are what really, truly build your workplace environment, not all the paperwork in the world. And listen, this isn't just some fluffy philosophical debate anymore. For any organization in Australia, this intense focus on culture has now become a very urgent, very real legal requirement. And it's all thanks to something called the positive duty. So, back in December of 2022, the entire legal landscape just changed. The positive duty officially became law, and it completely flipped the script on workplace responsibility. And I'm not talking about a tiny little tweak here. This was a massive, seismic shift. So what is this positive duty? Well, it's a legal obligation for organizations to proactively take reasonable and proportionate measures to, and this is the key word, eliminate workplace sexual harassment and discrimination. Eliminate it. The expectation is no longer just reactive, waiting for a complaint to come in. It's now about preventing the harm from ever happening in the first place. This slide just sums it up perfectly. In the old days, the question was, hey, do you have a harassment policy? Tick the box. Done. But now, the Australian Human Rights Commission, which has real enforcement power, is going to ask a totally different question. They're going to ask, what reasonable measures did you take to eliminate this risk? And that, my friends, is a culture question, not a compliance question.
Okay, so how in the world do you even begin to answer a question like that? Well, thankfully, we're not flying blind. The Australian Human Rights Commission has actually laid out a super comprehensive framework to show us the way. And this is it, the 7 Pillars framework. As you can see, it's a totally holistic system. It covers everything from the very top, leadership and governance, down to risk assessment, training, reporting, and all the way to monitoring and continuous improvement. And this isn't some buffet where you can pick and choose what you like. The expectation is that you're building a solid foundation across all 7 of these areas. That's how you build a workplace that's not just compliant, but actually safe.
Now, looking at that framework, it might seem pretty straightforward, but the reality of putting it all into practice, whoa, that's a massive challenge. So let's get real for a minute and look at where most organizations are at right now and why so many of them stumble.
So just take a guess. When a totally normal organization goes through a deep dive audit against those 7 pillars for the very first time, what do you think their score is? How compliant are they really?
Less than 50%. That's right. The vast majority, and I mean the vast majority, land squarely in the significant work needed category. It's a pretty shocking number, and it just shows you how huge the gap is between having a policy and actually meeting this new legal duty.
To put that another way, a typical audit usually finds that about 2/3 of an organization's framework has major gaps. Only about 1/3 is actually meeting expectations. I mean, when you see it like that, you realize just how immediate and, frankly, how alarming this compliance gap is for most businesses.
So where are these big gaps showing up? Well, they're usually in the harder, more systemic stuff. Things like a total lack of reporting up to the board about prevention efforts, or risk assessments that are just based on assumptions, not on actual data about what's going on. Or, and this is a big one, measuring if people completed the training instead of measuring if the training was actually effective. And maybe the most crucial of all, not learning from incidents to go back and fix the root causes.
Okay, so this reality check means we need a fundamental shift in how we think about this. You just can't treat this like a one-and-done project. The only path forward is to move from that static, reactive mindset to a dynamic, ongoing process.
And here's the difference in a nutshell. The old, reactive model was all about these annual audits that were out of date the second they were printed, constantly chasing paperwork and only taking action after something bad already happened. The new world is proactive and continuous. Instead of just reacting to fires, you're installing a sprinkler system. This means you need live visibility into your risks, a single source of truth for all your data, and just a relentless focus on preventing harm before it even starts.
At the end of the day, the goal isn't to build a mountain of paperwork. The safest workplaces, the ones that truly get this right, will be the ones that can spot risk as it's forming, act on it before it causes harm, and learn incredibly quickly from what's happening on the ground. It's all about building a responsive, intelligent system.
Okay, so we've gone through the problem, the new legal rules, and the mindset shift you've got to make. And I get it, this can feel completely overwhelming. So the big, pivotal question is, where on earth do you even begin?
The answer is actually really simple. You start by getting your score. It's that basic. You can't fix what you can't see, so the very first, most important step is to get a clear, honest, data-driven picture of where you stand right now. And the best way to do that? Take a free, comprehensive audit that's built to align directly with that official AHRC framework. It's going to ask you the tough questions. It'll force you to look at your actual evidence, and it will give you a clear gap analysis showing you exactly where you need to focus your energy. Look, it's not about being perfect overnight. It's about knowing your starting line so you can start building your roadmap from there. And that is how you move from just good intentions to real action.